Hey guys, what's up? So it's another Modern Monday report sort of deal. Uh, I call it that because I namely go and play Modern on Mondays at my locals. And yeah, it's just when I usually play Modern. Haven't been able to go on Fridays and the weekends lately, but I have been able to go to Moderns on Mondays and Pioneer on Thursdays since that's when they kind of host it. But either way, yeah, just here to tell you how I did with the deck and how I did at the tournament. So this week had about 18 people, 18-20 people show up, and still playing the same deck. Haven't really made any changes to the deck because I think I've kind of have the deck in a good spot right now. It's working pretty well and it's winning me games against multitudes of different types of decks, which is kind of good. It's performing pretty well, so I, at least at the local meta, local area, I'm pretty confident I can kind of play the deck well enough to win most of my matchups against all sorts of decks. Whether it's other control decks, mid-range decks, combo decks, they all seem to, or this deck has seemed to done pretty well against all of it. And same with my side deck. I do want to make a few changes to the side deck, and I'll talk about that in a second. But other than that, I think the main deck is pretty good. Maybe one or two changes to the main deck. There's a few cards that are a little weaker in the meta, and I think I talked about them before. But overall, I liked where the deck is, and when I maybe have enough money, I'll build this deck on Magic Online, and actually play it online and get in some leagues and hopefully do well there. So yeah, my matchups this week, 4 rounds. I got, I think, second or third, because I think we ended up there were 3 undefeated. I think we ended up splitting the prizes and stuff. So yeah, I think I got either second or third because of my tiebreaker, but basically I went undefeated. So round 1 I went against Yorion Control, I believe. Round 2 went against Mono Red Prison, I guess Mono Red Ramp, and then round 3 I went against what's his face, Yawgmoth. Yeah, Yawgmoth. In round 4 I would have played against Murktide, which I think I would have had a fairly decent matchup against anyways, but we just split the prize, so we didn't end up playing. But yeah, let's go ahead and talk about my results. So I think this week I did a lot better than last week, actually. So this week I 2-0'd everyone. Didn't lose a single match or a single game this week. So 2-0'd round 1, 2-0'd round 2, and then 2-0'd round 3. Now I think I just had really good draws. There were a couple times where it was a little sketchy, but I think I did get lucky. So yeah, let's kind of talk about it. So with Yorion, I think this is a band control version. So it was still 80 cards, but I don't think I saw any red. No, at least I couldn't recall any red. So I didn't see any Fury. Oh, actually, it is 4-color control, because I did see a red and 6, so it was playing with red. But I think the only red card he was playing was Bolt and red and 6. I didn't see Fury for both games. I did see Solitude. I saw Baby Teferi, red and 6. Did see Omnath and Big Teferi, but I didn't see Fury. So which I guess maybe he swapped it, the Fury for the 5 mana Teferi instead. So I think he was going more of a control route, because I think I did see some Archmage Charms. Or maybe not Archmage Charms. I saw Expressive Liberation and Counter Spells. But yeah, game 1 was very long. It took us, I think, 30 to 40 minutes to complete game 1. And that was because I think both of us were able to resolve Baby Teferi on the board. but we had no way of getting rid of the other person's Teferi, so we couldn't really interact. And because he wasn't really playing Fury, he didn't really get rid of my Teferi. I think the only way he got rid of it, eventually we were both able to get rid of the other person's small Teferi using Prismatic Ending. Throughout the game, I think he had a very good advantage. Like, he was able to blink with Yorion, he was able to do a bunch of stuff, get a bunch of value, essentially kind of outdraw me. And I was kind of because he was able to resolve his small Teferi first, so I was just sitting behind, kind of just hanging on for dear life. All the threats he did put on the board, I got rid of. I got rid of his 5 mana Teferi. I got rid of his I think his Omnath. There you go, Omnath and Solitudes and stuff like that. But I couldn't get rid of this guy. So for a while, that was the game. It was just us sitting on Teferi, kind of just drawing cards, passing. Eventually, I think I was able to resolve a Jace too, so I was able to stick a Jace on the board. He tried a few times to Prismatic Ending this, but fortunately I had some counter spells up. Because we got rid of each other's Teferis, and then I was able to resolve Jace surprisingly without it getting countered. I thought he had a lot of counter spells saved up in his hand, but I guess he didn't. So yeah, I started just brainstorming every turn with Jace just to try to build my hand. I think he does resolve like another 5 mana Teferi, and I didn't get rid of that for a while. But what kind of won me the game was just resolving another couple Planeswalker. I think I was able to resolve an Emperor. And Emperor started pumping out tokens, and I think he had a hard time keeping up with the 2/2 tokens I was making, and it was kind of threatening his 5 mana Teferi, and I think he resolves another baby Teferi, but it didn't really matter too much because I had a couple of tokens out. And then I was able to resolve another 5 mana Teferi against his, and then we just kept upticking, drawing cards. Weren't really kind of interacting with the board at that point. He was just drawing cards to get rid of my tokens. I was just drawing cards just to make up for my lack of card draws in the earlier part of the game. Eventually I was able to get rid of both his small Teferi by attacking it over, his big Teferi I think by just running it over with a Hall of Storm Giant or something like that. I don't quite remember, but at the end of the game I had still my Teferi and Jace and Morning Emperor on the board, and so he forfeits the game because he had no other way of dealing with my Planeswalkers. So that's why sometimes I still like Jace, just because against certain matchup you stick him on the board and they don't get rid of him. I think you just win from there, right? Like, you just keep upticking, and I'll tell you what happened with him again. He does come in and play again later. So game 2, how I cyborged against him was, I think I did this, and that. So I think I took out most of my cheap. I kept in my like removal, but I think I took out some of my Alloy March, took out Dam, took out Kai's Guile, stuff like that, stuff where I don't think it was gonna see any play. So idea here is to just counter his spells, return Omnath, or if he tries to cast Omnath, or if he tries to play Red in 6, which it does come up. So game 2, I think he goes Red in 6, turn 2, he goes first. My turn, I just I Prismatic Ending it. Next turn again, he plays another Red in 6. And I think I try to I leave it, and then at the end of the turn I Aether Gust it, or not, did I end of the turn Aether Gust it? Something like that, or I forget exactly what happened, but I eventually end up getting both of his Red in 6, so he didn't have Red in 6 ready, and he was just drawing cards. For me, I think I ended up being able to resolve a Snapcaster on the board. I had 2 counter spells in hand and a Solitude. Time was called. We ended up just comparing each other's hand, but he ended up just giving me the game because he knew he was going to be able to outplay it anyways. One well, I was up a game, so even if we did draw that game, I would win the match anyways, so it didn't matter. But looked at his hand. He had small Teferi and 5-mana Teferi and a couple lands, so I think I had the advantage there because I had double counter spells and Solitude, and I think on the board I had a Snapcaster, so advantage in my court there. And I think if we did play it out, I think I would have won the game regardless, just because I had counter spells and stuff up. So yeah, 2-old the Yorion player. Next game was against the Mono Prison red deck that I played against last week, or I guess Impulse Red Draw or Blood Moon. I guess I'm not quite sure what to call the deck. I win the die roll and I go first. I do get counter spells. I think I had counter spells in the hand. I think I had Snapcasters, Opt. So I had a pretty good hand. Game 1 goes really smoothly for me. He wasn't able to resolve anything that was a threat. I think he did play like Snaring Bridge, and I think he does Chalice for like 1, stuff like that. It didn't really matter because my entire hand was just playable. I get out small Teferi, balance the Snaring Bridge, start attacking with Snapcaster, stuff like that. Slowly just kind of chipping away at his life and just controlling his board state the entire time. And so I ended up just winning game 1 fairly without too much issue on my end. Game 2 was where it got kind of interesting. We both mulligan. I think he mulligans twice. I mulliganed once. My hand was kind of eh. It was kind of iffy, I think I had like double Aether Gust, counter spell, or Dolan's Veto. Let me see what I put in. So for him, knowing that he doesn't really play that many creatures, I put this in. I think something like this. I think I did something like this. So the idea here was to, if he tries to Magnus of the Moon me or something like that, Celestia was there to be a free spell to stop Magnus of the Moon, or if I was under Blood Moon or something, I could Celestia a Planeswalker or something like that. This is just to make sure he doesn't resolve any of his valuable spells. Teferi, just to bounce stuff. Because he played a lot of artifacts, and he played, if I can resolve a Teferi. I know he played Fury and all that, so if I keep upticking to regular Teferi, I don't think the Fury would be able to get rid of it in one shot. So, and then Aether Gust, pretty self-explanatory. Against most red decks, especially mono red, Aether Gust is a must-have. Especially if you're playing Control, they're playing Blood Moon. It's your 1 card out. So, game 2 starts. I had Flooded Strand and a Hall of Storm Giant, and I think Veto and 2 of this and 1 other card. So my hand is a little questionable, but I keep it because he does mulligan down to 5. So I think I should be able to play it. Now some decisions I made were a little funky. I played the Flooded Strand. The next turn I played the Hall. I don't crack it. I just leave it there. I think he tries to go like a Blood Moon or something. I crack my land for. Now this is the one thing I wasn't too sure if I did correctly. I cracked for a blue source. And because I know I had the Aether Gust, so if he played Blood Moon, I would have been able to easily out that. But almost in hindsight, sometimes I thought I should have maybe went for a Hollow Fountain, just because I knew I had enough spells in my hand, enough counter spells and counter magic, that he was not going to be able to resolve anything. But either way, I cracked for a blue, so I don't have mana up for Dolan's Veto. I have double blue, so I Aether Gust, or did something to stop his Blood Moon or whatever he was gonna play. I think it was Blood Moon. He tries to Blood Moon me. I Aether Gust it, and then next turn, he Chalices. So he's on turn 4. He's on 4 lands. I'm on only 2 lands still. So he Chalices for 2. Now, I think in my hand I had March, So I had Veto and a March up, or Prismatic Ending, I forget. So that's, I think, was my misplay right there. Not having mana up for Dovin's Veto, and not having mana for the March, because I totally skipped my mind that, like, if he does Chalice me for 2, then my Aether Gust is not going to be able to get rid of his Blood Moon the turn after. So I misplayed a little bit there. However, turn after I did draw my white source, I think. I think I draw Plains, or I draw a yeah, I think I draw Plains, or I draw a fetch land, I forget. So good for me. I get rid of his Chalice. He tries a Blood Moon, I Aether Gust, and then basically from there I kind of just locking him into just drawing the Blood Moon. So the choice is, because I Aether Gust him, like, I think, like, with another Snapcaster, so at least 3 times, and he ended up just top decking the Blood Moon each time. Now I'm not sure what at that point if his decision to keep the Blood Moon on top of his deck was the correct one. I thought he should have just let it go to the bottom of his deck and just trying to draw other cards, other threats maybe, rather than stick to the plan of trying to resolve the Blood Moon, especially when I think I already had a Plains and a island on board. So no matter what, even if his Blood Moon did resolve, I was still able to play the game. So I'm not too sure if he made the right choice there. We did talk about it at the end of the game. He said he thought it was his best draw compared to whatever else he could have drawn in his deck. Because if he drew like an impulse card, impulse mana, or he drew like a mountain or something like that, it was a lot worse than Blood Moon. And so I think that's why he stuck to the Blood Moon plan. But luckily for me, I kept drawing additional lands, had additional counter magic and stuff like that, so I was just prepared for it. So yeah, game 2 was in my favor and I ended up winning. I think I got lucky on that one though. I think the cracking the land for an island was a mistake. I should have cracked it for a Hollow Fountain, because I just had enough counter magic that I knew that nothing was going to be a threat to me, even though I was stuck at 2 lands for a while. But luckily I just drew my 3rd land and was able to get rid of that Chalice and deal with Blood Moon and win from there. Round 3 I play against Yawgmoth. Now I've had some practice against Yawgmoth, so I kind of have an idea of what to look out and what to do. So the game goes on. He keeps a 1-lander, but he has like 3 different. I think he has 2 Birds of Paradise and Ignoble Hierarch. And I was just stuck on 2 lands. That I think 2 or 3 lands I was stuck on. For me, every time he tried to put a Strangle Root on the board, or he tried to put a Yawgmoth on the board, I would counter it, because that stuff was, I knew, because he wasn't really using his mana for anything else, because he was kind of just stuck on the birds and everything. So he wasn't really doing anything too crazy with that. I was trying to steal his dorks with my my Archmage's Charm, but there was a couple times I just couldn't do it just because he was casting Yawgmoth, and I had to counter Yawgmoth with the Archmage's Charm. I had to counter his Eldritch, like Evolution and Court of Calling and stuff like that. The turning point of the game for me was when he had he fetches for like a the Dryad, the 1/1 Dryad land, and he attacks with it because he had Ignoble Hierarch. It gives it the I forgot what the ability was. It gives it a +1 because he was just attacking with the Dryad, or no, I think I get rid of the Ignoble Hierarch, so I think he was just attacking with something else. But either way, I think he was just trying to chip me down. I was really low. I think I was like at 7 health, so I was dangerously low. But he attacks with a Dryad. I think he just has double birds or something like that. So I cast Kaya's Guile, forcing him to sacrifice a creature and make a 1/1 token to block. what he does is he sacrifices one of his birds, and then I block with the I block the token, and then I think he tries to Elwich Evolution or Court of Calling, sacrificing one of the other dorks, or the Dryad. I don't quite remember, but I counter it, and I think that's where it puts it in my favor, because at that point I think he lost most of his board. He does just start flooding out after that, after him failing to resolve the Court of Calling or the Evolution. I started just jamming down Planeswalkers, and I think that's where it kind of just went in my favor. He never saw the Grist against me, which is great, because I think every time he did try to cast Grist, I countered it, so I never let Grist resolve. Grist is the number one biggest problem for the control deck, namely because he keeps making the 1/1s, and you don't have enough resources and speed or cards just to deal with the 1/1s that keep piling up. And the fact that Grist can kill your Planeswalker for essentially for free. So never let Grist resolve. Yawgmoth you can deal with. Yawgmoth is, you know, something you can deal with, but Grist is something it's just difficult to deal with. Just like with, you know, small Teferis, if a small Teferi resolves on the board, it becomes nearly impossible for your deck to kind of out it. And so just be careful. Don't let Grist resolve, and don't let him put too much creatures on the board. Otherwise, you know, you'll end up just kind of dying out there. I think what also helped me win that game was I think I do resolve the Jace. So that's why I was thinking about was I resolved the Jace uncontested, and I think he attacks at it once. But yeah, he just doesn't have enough attackers to get rid of my Jace, so I kept trying to fix my hand, try to draw the outs and counter spells and stuff like that, and that's how I essentially kind of win game one, was resolving a Jace, and then that one maneuver where I cast Kai's Guile and stuff like that, was able to kind of swing the board in my favor. Game two, what did I put in? I sided in, I think something like this. Yeah, something like this is what I put in against Yawgmoth. So, you know, Gus, because their entire deck is essentially green. Gus, the only thing that Gus doesn't answer is Yawgmoth, which is fine. You have other ways to kill Yawgmoth. Subtlety, they play a bunch of, you know, planeswalkers and creatures, so subtlety is always going to be good. Another board wipe, because obviously they have a lot of creatures. Getting a board wipe at the right time will kind of at least help you stabilize. And Void Rend is just another way to get rid of Geist, get rid of Yawgmoth in case, you know, in case they do resolve it against you. Was great for me because I think the game goes on for a while. The most pivotal point that I could remember was I had a counterspell and a subtlety in my hand. He thought seizes me, and he decides to kill my counterspell, and then cast his Grist, because I think I either Gust the Grist. There was at one point he had a Yawgmoth. Oh, I guess there's two pivotal points in the game. So it was just turn after turn, but the pivotal point was he had a Yawgmoth and a Grist on board and an insect. So his turn, he goes activates the Grist loyalty to put an insect onto the board. I had five mana, 6 mana open. I cast Subtlety in response to the Grist trigger. So because I didn't want him to be able to get 2 creatures on the board and just ping down my Subtlety, because Subtlety is a 2/3. So in response, that's what I did. I bring out the Subtlety against his Yawgmoth. He responds by sacking one of his insect creatures, puts a counter on my Subtlety, and then he proliferates. That's what I forgot. So my mistake there was I forgot that he can also proliferate. So he does proliferate, ends up discarding a card, spends 2 mana, kills my Solitude, My Sawtooth kills his Yawgmoth, but his Grist now has a 1/1 token, and a 7 loyalty Grist. He passes it back to me because he doesn't have anything else to play, I think. So he passes it back to me. I think he keeps it 1 or 2 cards in hand. I forget. I have Aether Gust, Counterspell, and I think a Salty, and 6 mana open. So I think I go Aether Gust. I spin back the Grist. He puts it on top of his deck. He goes, and then he goes Thought Seizes me. So I had these two in hand. So he Thought Seizes me. He knows I know that he has a Grist because he put top back his deck. So he decides to get rid of my Counterspell, casts the Grist. I Salty. He puts the Grist back on top of his deck. Now his reasoning at that time, because he think he can deal with my Salty with the Grist, which is true. If I Counterspell his Grist, he's in top decking mode now. He's gonna be just top decking whatever to kind of play. But if I cast Salty, he puts the Grist on top of his deck. Next turn he draws the Grist, casts the Grist, minuses it to kill the Salty with his the Grist's -2 ability. So I think that was his game plan. And I think that's the right play between the 2 cards he had to take with Thoughtseize. I think taking the Salty was indeed better. So I had a lot of cards in my hand. So my turn, I draw into freaking Snapcaster. So that was like a top deck of the year. He tries to cast Grist. I Snapcaster, exile Counterspell, counter the Grist, and I think from there, I start trying to clock him with my Subtlety. I do have I think the turn after I draw a land, I do have, I think, Hall of the Storm Giant up and active. And so I think that's just kind of how the game ends there, where he couldn't really stop my my board, because I think I animate the Hall, swinging for 7, swinging with the Subtlety, and swinging with the Snapcaster. He blocks. I think he does get like a Young Wolf or something on the board. He blocks my Snapcaster, kills it. I have a Hall of Storm Giants. No, it wasn't sorry, it wasn't Hall of Storm Giant. It was the other card, the flyer, whatchamacallit. Yeah, he has I had this. So I had Celestial and Salty, so I'm trying to swing in for a total of 9 power. He was at 15 health, so he takes the 7, he goes down to 8. Or he goes down to 7 again. But he ends up killing my Snapcaster, blocks it with the Young Wolf, and so the Young Wolf comes back with either the Young Wolf or the Roots, Strangle Roots, comes back with a 1/1 counter. In my hand I had Damn, and I also had one more mana open. I left a Sunken Ruin. So if you don't know what Sunken Ruin is, it's the it's this. So I had Damn in my hand. This was a couple of turns after that play, and we were just kind of top decking, and I was trying to just chip away at his life with the Celestial and the Subtlety that I had that I had resolved. I don't know where the land is, but anyways, pretend this is Sunken Ruins. It's just a filter land. So I end up tapping after combat main phase 2. I tapped the Subtlety, or sorry, the Celestial and my my Sunken Ruins, cast a Dam for 2 black and kill off his Young Wolf because he had the token on it already. His go, he still has the, I think, the 1/1 insect there, because I never got rid of it. I thought he was gonna block my Snapcaster with the insect, but he ends up blocking it with the root anyway, so I guess it doesn't matter. He top decks. He's at 5 mana, so he casts his Yawgmoth. I guess that was his top deck. He casts his Yawgmoth, kills off the insect, draws a card, so he's down to like 7 health now. Puts a counter on Salty, and I think he forfeits from there, knowing that there's whatever card he drew, whatever he was doing, wasn't gonna allow him to survive like another swing with Salty and the Celestial, because I think he was at 7 or 6 health left now. I forget if I was able to chip him for 2 damage. I think I did chip him for 2 damage earlier. So he was at 15. I chipped him for 3. So I think he was at down to 12, and he took the full 7 from there. So he was at 5. Yeah. So he was at 5 health. Did Yawgmoth, so he was at 4 health now. So next turn I had 7 power. I had the subtlety. Well, I don't think I had 7 power. I had 6 power. So I have subtlety at 2 because he put a -1/1 counter on there, and then my call nade 4 power. So I had 6 power to his 4 health. So I think he ends up scooping there. So game 2, that's end up winning game 2 that way. So yeah, I think overall was pretty good matchups for me. I don't think my opponents misplayed. Maybe Yawgmoth may have misplayed once or twice. I think I misplayed too. But I think the red player was that. I think he made a couple of choices where it was a little questionable, especially game 2 where I was locking him into drawing Aether Gust, and he couldn't break that lock with my Aether Gust just going to town on his cards. My misplay, I think the one that I most remember was the one against which land to choose and which land to fetch. That just like last week is one of those things where you just have to fetch the correct land. Otherwise, you either lock yourself out of certain colors or you lose like a blood moon or something like that. So I think that was the hardest choice I had to make, was choosing the right lands to play in order to not get cucked by the blood moon and also be able to play my spells. But luckily for me, I just drew my land for the turn and was able to win. I mean both. I think both against Yawgmoth and against the mono red player, I did get a little bit land screwed, but I was able to play out of it, so wasn't entirely terrible. But yeah, I think there were just pretty close games, so definitely close ones, but end up winning. I think just due to experience of me piling the deck so much that I kind of figured out what I can get away with and how to kind of just play around my opponent's deck. So those were good plays there. Now I did speak about wanting to make 1 or 2 changes to the side deck, and there is something I'm considering, and that might be it there. So I've been considering changing these 2 cards out. Kai's Guy only because I'm playing so many, and plus Snapcaster, they're kind of redundant. And so maybe I think it's finally time I can potentially cut this down. And for the cards that I'm putting in, it's more or less kind of serve the same purpose. So I'm thinking of either adding 2 Chalice of the Voids into the side, or 2 Force of Negation into the side. Now, Chalice of the Void will kind of help me deal with both all the Cascade decks and also with all the I'm playing against I guess if I'm playing against whatchamacallit, artifacts, artifact deck or affinity decks, Chalice of the Void should help with that, or it should help with like Hammer Time, stuff like that, which is what this is for. And Kai's Guiles is for Living End. So Chalice of the Void would deal with kind of like both of that. It would deal with Living End and Temur Rhinos, and a bit of like the deal with, I guess, Murktide decks. It would deal with some stuff like that. And the reason I think that, because I would only ever use Chalice on 1 or 0. I wouldn't use Chalice on anything else other than that. Would never, blue. I would probably have to take out some ops maybe, but the rest of my spells I should be able to cast without Chalice interfering. Now those are the 2 I was thinking about: Chalice or Force of Negation if I'm playing against Team of Rhinos or something like that and they're trying to cast it, I should be able to negate that on their turn. If they were able to, like, cast, like, say they cast like a I guess they can't really play Veil of Summers. If they cast like some sort of counter spell or their own Force Negation or something like that, I'm not too sure. Force Negation is namely to hit Blood Moon and Teferi, because those are the two cards. If I ever tap out and I pass my turn and they resolve a Blood Moon or they resolve a Teferi, then it becomes a very tough game. Force of Negation will allow me to tap out and still be able to save myself from, like, a Blood Moon or a save myself from Blood Moon or a Teferi, or if I'm tapped out, maybe they're able to cascade during their turn. So those are my thoughts. I never got to side in Aether Gust lately because I haven't really played against too many low curve or Enchantress decks or stuff like that. So I'm thinking Aether Gust might be a card I can cut, and I can cut a third or the fourth Kaya's Guile just because I need some extra room, and that might be something I'll be able to cut. Otherwise, everything else in my side deck I have used my sideboard. I guess this would be the other card I might cut, because these three cards I think are the flexible spots where I can just kind of flex out, play something else instead of them. I mean, I have put these two especially sided up in my deck against matchups I know they're going to be okay against. But the Fracturing Gust is a great card. I just have never used it. At least at my locals, no one really plays that. When I go to other locals, I do run into Affinity decks. I do run into Hammer Time decks, and that's when I would put in the Fracturing Gust. But at the same time, it's a very slow card. It's 5 mana. It might be too slow to, what I was playing in this slot, I think I was playing like Farewell, and Farewell is same thing. It's 6 mana. It's just too slow. So I'm thinking about adding in, buying one of those 2 cards and then adding those in. Now I can't decide. I think Chalice would be better because Chalice is more, I guess, flexible. It's used in more matchups, where Force of Negation, there's only a few matchups I would use it against. Combo decks, maybe Murktide decks, maybe against Yorion Control decks. I'm not too sure. I think it needs a little bit more thought, and when I do get the budget, I might just buy one of those 2 cards. I'm leaning towards Chalice at the moment, but I'll have to see. I could borrow a couple of my friends' Chalice. I think he has like 4 of them, so I can maybe just borrow that and just test it out instead. But yeah, not looking to drop on the Chalices quite yet. But yeah, let me know what you guys think, if that's a good idea or not. But I think the rest of the sideboard I definitely like Aether Gust. Has always worked. It's especially last week, this week. Almost every deck I play against usually plays red or green. So they're both colors you see a lot of. And so yeah, these definitely have put in their work. And I've been playing against my friend who's been building Living End. And so my side deck against Living End has been pretty decent too. I think I go like this, Kaya's Guile, definitely, and that. I think I do this right here, and maybe another board wipe. So against Living End, this is what I've been signing in, and it's been working pretty well. Dovin's Veto, in case they try to Living End on your turn, you can Dovin's Veto and make sure their Force Negation can't stop it. Graveyard Hate right here, the 4 Graveyard Hate. Teferi, if you resolve Teferi against them, they almost have no way of beating Teferi. And in a board wipe, in case they do resolve a Living End on their turn, your turn you can just board wipe them and stabilize from there. So those are cards I play against Living End. He's also trying out Teamer Rhinos, but Teamer Rhinos is kind of like just my generic Aether Gus and a couple other things to play against that. And I did pretty well against his Teamer Rhino build. So yeah, I think that's it. Anyways, hope you guys enjoy me kind of rambling on, and I think I'll just kind of call this series Modern Mondays, because I've been just consistently going on Mondays and playing, and been mostly just kind of getting first, second, or third, you know, kind of topping at my locals a lot, and you know, against on average about 20 people or so a week. So I want to say my deck's doing pretty well. Yeah, sometimes I play against people I've already played against, but most of the time I play against I guess a variety of decks, and the deck has done pretty well against basically every deck I've tried it against. So I've been kind of like in where Esper Control is at right now, and the amount of black cards that I've been playing. My only other card I might change in my main deck, I think I spoke about it last month, was the basic Swamp. I don't think I need the basic Swamp. I might change it to the Plains or something, or another, I guess, dual land or something like that. But yeah, let me know you guys what you guys think, if you have any suggestions or anything else. But other than that, I think this video's gone on for a while. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned, and if we ever get to play against each other, hopefully we'll have a good game. See you guys next time.